Monarch is a game that has a lot of interesting ideas. Those ideas can be fun and make for a nice setup with some points in execution that could have been better. Monarch constantly reminds me that if it had the backing of a certain other company and had at least 25% of the love that a certain other game gets for that certain other company, then this game could have been so much better. But maybe that could be said about any game. Probably. But as it is, Monarch is certainly not bad, just that for what it does have, well, let's find out. Monarch places you in a school shrouded in mist. The mist makes it impossible for anyone to leave the school grounds. With this mist, it brings about pat bearers who house special powers known as authority from the 7 deadly sins of mankind. Some of these pat bearers are our silent protagonists and his companions, who use their authority to help stop the mist, and each have their own reasons for wanting to use or keep their authority. Other pat bearers use their authority in not so good ways. One girl is trying to kill any guy who breaks up with her, and a boy is using it to torment an entire grade of students for not helping him when he was getting bullied. And do I even need to say what happens to the students who did the bullying? Yeah, it gets a little bit twisted. You and your companions are looking to stop these pat bearers, but it's not as easy as going up to them and telling them to stop. You have to enter the other world to shatter their ideals and then defeat the pat bearer. The other world is where battle takes place, but more on that a little bit later. As you try to traverse the school looking for a call to get to the other world, you have to solve some puzzles. Monarch has a pretty good atmosphere along with some good sound design that make going around in areas covered by mist a bit creepy. Now, these puzzles aren't anything too difficult to solve, but the game does want you to use some basic brain power to find the answers, some of which are going to be right in front of you and require you not to think too hard. Others will have you do some research into a student's profile, for instance, to get answers. And there are notes left around in areas with hints to help you out. I'm proud to say I got through the majority of the game without using a guide to figure out these puzzles, but as you get further in, the hints become more vague, and to solve some optional puzzles that don't require story progression, it'll take a little bit more elbow grease of the brain to figure out. When it comes to the characters of Monarch, they don't do much to make you attached to them at first. In the beginning, I felt the game wanted me to really care about the characters, but wasn't really doing a good job in conveying it. Now, without spoiling it, which I'm inclined to say is not really a spoiler because they all do this, they all hint at something that's going to happen towards the latter half of the game. And in the beginning, I'm like, okay, I don't really have a problem with doing that because I don't really care about any of you. But as you get to a certain point in the game, the characters start to make some reveals, and then you start to feel that very thing you probably should have felt for these characters about 10 or so hours ago. Maybe that's a pacing issue, or maybe that's intentional. Who do you know that's just going to tell you all about their life story and trauma in the first few hours of meeting you? But this is a JRPG, so you need to condense that down to, 40 or so hours to make it make sense. And to be honest, these reveals did hit kind of hard. At least for me, they did. Seriously, some of these characters need therapy. I'm not equipped to deal with their shit. This game is surprisingly voice acted. Hell, when the demo dropped, my ears were expecting to hear Japanese voices, but to my complete and utter shock, it has an English dub. The English dub isn't too bad. The dub was fine for me, but I can see a lot of people maybe not liking it. Some characters do sound a little bit annoying, and one character in particular I knew should sound like a little girl sounds like a grown-ass woman. The entire game is voice acted in English, but if you want to switch to the Japanese voices, just go right into the options at the title screen to change it. The soundtrack and sound design just works for this game. The eerie atmosphere of the school covered in mist, also followed by the eerie background music, really helps you get immersed in the game's creepy vibe that the game is giving off. Also, really unstable students affected by the mist give off a terrifying screech that, I'm not gonna lie, actually jump scared me more times than I care to admit. Some battle themes work rather well for the game, but when it comes to the overall music, it's the boss battle themes that hit the most. Them being vocal tracks, they are befitting of each boss in their respective theme. They go hard, and for me personally, they almost rival that of Persona 5's boss battle themes. There is one normal battle theme in particular that is just so freaking good. It's living rent-free in my head. Actually, no, I'm paying it to live in my head. It's the Gluttony battle theme, and that track was just, it's so good. It's got a guitar moment in it that's just, what the fuck? Why is it so good? I don't know, maybe that's just me, but this theme by itself made replaying maps over and over again a breeze. Monarch is a rather low budget and niche JRPG, so it isn't going to win any awards in the visual section. Character models and environments look okay at best. The whole game is presented in a visual novel-esque format, showcasing the game's artwork. The artwork really conveys that dark and creepy feeling that the game gives off. However, the character designs don't translate too well to the in-game character models. Nothing that was a major turnoff for me, but just something I noticed. Now, let's talk about battle. Monarch is a turn-based tactical RPG. You have player and enemy phases. You can move your characters in a limited range of movement, position them to attack, and use a special skill or an item. You have a mag gauge and a weight gauge that will fill up depending on the actions taken in battle. Each time you use a special skill, it will come at the cost of increasing your mag gauge. Once the mag gauge is filled, your character will, well, go mad, resulting in increased attack power, but they will attack friend and foe alike, and after a certain amount of turns will explode and cause damage to everything in the area. When the weight gauge is full, you can unleash a special powerful attack should you have the skill unlocked. If you manage to get the weight gauge and mag gauge to 100% at the same time, your character will enter an enlightened state, where an even more powerful special attack will become available for use if you unlock the skill. Monarch has a unique battle mechanic of resonance. This will allow you to connect to friend or foe alike and share stat buffs in whatever state the characters are in. However, it also connects debuffs to any status ailment a character might be suffering from. You also have a defer option that will let a character give up their turn in exchange for letting another character have an extra turn at the cost of increasing the mag gauge. Monarch's battle structure and mechanics are different from what I'm used to in a tactical RPG. You do have options to make some pretty impressive plays should you utilize the many various skills that you can unlock. However, your level kinda determines a lot in Monarch, so you might be tempted to just power level your way through maps and boss battles. And I'm sure there are many ways you could probably beat this game at a low level if you make use of everything at your disposal. Now, gaining levels in Monarchs is yet again a different affair than what I'm used to. You see, after battle or while exploring the school, you get spirit points that you can spend on your characters to unlock skills, not to mention buying recovery items. The thing is, leveling up is tied to unlocking these skills, so when you use spirit points to unlock a skill, you gain a level. There's a set amount of skills your characters can learn from the skill tree, but you can also upgrade those skills to not only increase the skills level, but to gain another character level. This way of level progression was different, but I felt it's different for the sake of being different. But I also think it's done like this with intent. You see, Monarch's game structure is split between puzzle solving sections and story battles. The game doesn't have traditional dungeons like most RPGs have, so once you're done with the puzzle and get to the next story battle, the enemies are of increased level. The game expects you to be diving into the other world to essentially grind out spirit points so you can level up your skills and thus level up your characters. And that kind of messes with the pacing in the beginning. You'll feel like you're under level, but if you keep playing the game more, you'll know for every story section, you'll probably need to be 5 or 8 levels higher, so you have to grind. Now, keeping all that in mind, is that really a grind? For the most part, dungeons are in RPGs for characters to gain levels between each major boss battle, but it's like Monarch just cuts out the middleman entirely by leaving out dungeons. So those levels that you are grinding out are essentially the same levels you would have gained if the game had dungeons. Unless, of course, you're just running from every battle. But do you see what I'm saying here? As I said, dungeons are in games for characters to level up, but they are also there for a bit of story progression and character development. As I said earlier, the game wants you to care about its characters in the early going, but really doesn't earn that. Maybe having dungeons in which also had story events could have solved this problem, but as it stands, the game will be criticized for being rather grindy, especially when new party members get added to your party and they all get to start at level 1. So if you don't have the spirit points, you're left having to grind more spirit points to get them up to par. Made even worse by the fact that most story maps require you to have a full party to even start the map. So if you didn't level up that new party member, you pretty much got a useless unit in battle. Easily could have been solved by, after getting past certain story points, characters you get automatically come at a predetermined level. Come on, Monarch, what are you doing to me? I'm trying to help you out here. Now, this didn't bother me too much because, well, I play mobile games and all you're doing in those, at least in the one I play, you're just grinding out maps to gain materials to level up characters over and over and over again. So this aspect of the game didn't affect me, but I can definitely see it affecting others. When the dust has settled and all the smoke has cleared, Monarch's problems pretty much stem from it being a budget title. There's a point in the game where major reveals are being made, and they should have impact and maybe traditional cutscenes to go further into depth about these major points, but as it was revealed, it was just like I was just reading text. The visuals are nothing to write home about, but the game does capture the atmosphere it was going for. All of this could have been presented so much better if a certain other company was behind it and gave it at least 25% of the love that that very company gives for a certain game. I liked Monarch and spent about 40 hours with it. The game gives you the option to tackle story events and gain characters in any order you wish, giving you some freedom. I don't like how they set up the ending for this game. It requires you to almost befriend all characters and get a pseudo ending of sorts. It's like the game sets up for multiple endings, but then after a certain point, the game is like, nah fam, go get the true ending by siding with everyone each time and going back to a certain point in the game to side with someone else. Why? If you want to have one true ending, structure it that way, not take us all the way back to a certain point to make a different choice. And it does indeed increase the game's playtime by making the enemy stronger, thus you need to gain more levels. This game just screams with madness that it could have been so much more, but I do think it does the most with what it has, and what it has is just good enough.